When it comes to the NHL, the stars are almost always the center of attention. If their team is performing well, they get praised. If their team is performing not so well, then they usually shoulder a lot of the blame. More than any other sport in the world, the NHL is very team-oriented, and you can't just have one superstar carry a team to the Stanley Cup, or even the playoffs. I mean, just ask Buffalo fans. Every team that wants to be successful needs a good supporting cast, players that are willing to do the little things it takes to win games that maybe some of the stars on the team don't do. These are called role players, and in this video I want to talk about who in my opinion are some of the best role players in the NHL today. Real quickly before we begin, if you guys are new to the channel and you want to see more NHL content like this, then be sure to hit that subscribe button. We're getting so close to 40,000, and with all that being said, let's not waste any more time and jump right into the video. Let's start off with Zach Hyman, somebody I'm sure all you knew was going to be in the video, and when trying to come up with players for this video, he was actually the first player that came to my mind. When the Maple Leafs are playing well, they're one of the most highly praised teams in the league, but when they're playing bad, they are absolutely torn to shreds, and a lot of time when they're in a slump, people like to question the work ethic of some of the top guys on the team, your players like Marner, Matthews, Nylander, and Tavares. But I don't think there has ever been a time where anybody has questioned the work ethic of Zach Hyman. You could not pay him to take a shift off, and a lot of times his work ethic and his relentless style of play brings in the results for him. He tied a career high in goals this season with 21 in just 51 games. He really is like a Swiss Army knife. He can play in the first, second, third, or even fourth line. He can kill penalties, and he can play on the power play. And especially for a team like Toronto, who has a lot of money tied up in their top guys, it's really nice to have a player like Zach Hyman on such a good contract. Next up from the New York Islanders, CIZIKAS. A part of what makes the Islanders such a good team, and why they were able to excel after John Tavares' departure, is because they have so many good depth pieces and so many good role players. In my opinion, one of the more entertaining lines to watch in the entire NHL is when the Islanders roll out CIZIKAS with Cal Clutterbuck and Matt Martin. I remember in the playoffs last year against the Penguins at Nassau Coliseum, this line was wreaking havoc and you could tell they were feeding off of the crowd heavily. I don't know about you guys, but I know exactly where I'd be heading if I saw this line jump the boards. I'd be heading to the bench. I really could have went with any of those three guys for this spot, but I went with CIZIKAS because he really does a little bit of everything. He finished this season with a 53.4 face-off percentage, which is great. He obviously hits a ton with 133 hits this year in just 48 games, and he can even score a little bit too. He had 20 goals last season for the first time in his career and had 10 goals this season in 48 games. He's one of the many players in the league that you'd love to have on your team but just hate to play against. VALERI NICHUSHKIN. It's really nice to see him thriving in the NHL again after last season when he didn't score a goal in 57 games for Dallas, and I personally thought he was most likely going to spend the rest of his career in the KHL. But Nichushkin has kind of reinvented his game and became a very useful player for the Colorado Avalanche this season. And advanced stats wise, he was actually one of the better players in the NHL this season. Some of the pages that I follow on Twitter always make the joke Nichushkin for the Hart Trophy just because of how good he was in terms of his advanced stats. And prior to this season, one of Colorado's biggest weaknesses was the lack of depth behind guys like Landeskog, Rantanen, and McKinnon, but this season that wasn't an issue at all, and Nichushkin was a key factor in that. In 65 games, Nichushkin had 13 goals and 14 assists for 27 points, and also had a fantastic plus-minus at plus 26. He is on a one-year contract this season, and I'm really hoping the Avalanche bring him back. I mean, I don't see any reason why they wouldn't want to, but let's just hope they can work out a deal that really benefits both sides. Moving along now, we have everybody's favorite player in the league, Tom Wilson. Okay, but in all seriousness, I know Tom Wilson does cross the line, probably more than any other player in the NHL, and at sometimes can be a downright dirty player, but when he's not playing the game that way, he is a very good top 6 forward for the Washington Capitals. I remember back in the summer of 2018, after the Capitals won the Stanley Cup that Wilson was a huge part of. He had 15 points in 21 playoff games. He was rewarded with a pretty lucrative deal, 6 years and $31 million total. And at the time, everybody thought that was pretty insane, but Tom Wilson has showed that he is well worth it, scoring 22 goals last season in just 63 games and 21 this season in just 68 games. And of course, when it comes to Wilson, he brings a lot more to the table than just his offense. He's always among the league leader in hits, and if you ever need someone to drop the gloves, whether it's to stick up for a player on the team or just to get the team going, he's your guy. Say what you want about Wilson, but he really plays his role perfectly and is a very important player for Washington. The next player we have is Pierre Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, and like Nichushkin, Bellemare is a reason why Colorado's depth was a lot better this season than in seasons past. He's definitely not somebody who's going to score you a lot of points, although he did have a career year offensively this season with 9 goals and 22 points in 69 games. But in my opinion, Bellemare is really the ideal fourth line centerman. He has a great all-around defensive game, and he's good in the face-off circle, and he's also an extremely durable player. He played in 70 or more games every single season of his career except this year, but he did play in 69 and would have played in 70 or more again had it not been for the season shutdown. Bellemare is also a really good veteran leader. Although he hasn't played in the NHL for an extremely long time, his first season being the 2014-15 season with the Flyers, he played professionally over in Europe from 2003 all the way up until 2014. Not a big name, not a flashy player, but he really excels in his role. Next up we have Alex KILLORN of the Tampa Bay Lightning, and obviously a big reason why Tampa Bay is such a dominant team is because they have multiple stars, guys on the blue line like McDonough and Hedman, and players up front like Nikita Kucherov, Steven Stamkos, and Braden Point. And obviously their goaltender's not too bad either in Vasilevsky. But part of what makes them such a dangerous team is the fact that you can shut down Braden Point, you can shut down Stamkos and Kucherov, but there are still so many offensive weapons on that team that can pick up the slack. Guys like Tyler Johnson, Andre Palat, Anthony Cirelli, and Alex KILLORN, who I'm talking about right now. I'm a big fan of his game. And KILLORN is having the best season of his career, a career high 26 goals in just 68 games, 49 total points, which is also a career high. He has a really complete game as well. Anytime you finish a season with more takeaways than giveaways, that's always a really good sign. And this season, KILLORN had 27 takeaways and just 26 giveaways. Moving along now, we have Andrew COPP of the Winnipeg Jets, and COPP is a player that ideally you would probably like to have on your third line, but if need be, he can definitely step into a top 6 role and hold his own. And we've seen that over the past 2 seasons where he's played a lot of second line center. He's not known for his offense whatsoever, but he does chip in some goals here and there, scoring 11 last season and 10 this season. COPP is also great in the faceoff circle, finishing the year at 52.9%. And like I said with Alex KILLORN, whenever you finish a season with more takeaways than giveaways, it's a really good sign. And COPP actually had 38 takeaways and just 27 giveaways. That's a really good ratio. This season, he finished with just 1 power play point, which is kind of to be expected because he doesn't get a lot of looks on the power play, but one impressive stat is his 3 shorthanded points. He's a very dangerous player when killing penalties. Next up from Nashville, we have JARNKROK, and they have a couple of good depth players. I like Colton Sisson's game a lot too, but decided to go with JARNKROK for this spot. After he had a breakout season in 2015-16 with 16 goals and 30 points, Nashville signed him to a 6-year, $12 million contract, and at the time, a lot of people thought that was a pretty weird move because he was most likely still going to be a bottom 6 forward for them, but that contract has actually turned out to be really good for Nashville. He's consistently given them from 10 to 15 goals and from 25 to 35 points each year since signing the deal. Overall, just a really solid bottom 6 forward, and like COPP and like Alex KILLORN, has a pretty solid giveaway to takeaway ratio. And although he's a winger, he has a pretty respectable faceoff percentage as well at 47.1. And the final player of the video, BARCLAY of the Tampa Bay Lightning. There is a reason Tampa Bay gave up a first-round pick at the trade deadline to bring him in. Was it still an overpayment? 1000% it was, but he's a really useful player. In 70 games this season, Goodrow has 8 goals and 18 assists for 26 points and has 162 hits. And I know I have been bringing up the giveaway to takeaway ratio a lot, but his 44 takeaways and just 23 giveaways is pretty impressive. BARCLAY is definitely a player you want to have on your team come playoff time, and I feel like that is probably one of the biggest reasons why Tampa Bay did overpay to bring him in. I mean, we all saw what happened to Tampa Bay in the playoffs last year, and I think they realized they need some more players like him on the team. Another really good role player on Tampa Bay I figured I'd mention is Blake Coleman, who they also brought in this season via trade. But I decided to go with BARCLAY for this spot because I feel like some people were a tad disrespectful to him after the trade, acting as if Tampa Bay gave up a first-round pick for some nobody. But in reality, Goodrow is a player I'm sure every coach in the league would love to have on their team. That is going to wrap up today's video. I really hope you guys did enjoy. Make sure to let me know down in the comment section below who are some of your guys' favorite role players in the NHL. It can be a guy like Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, who usually never plays anywhere higher than the 4th line, or a guy like Tom Wilson or Zach Hyman, who do play in the top 6 but aren't necessarily the stars on the team. With that being said though, if you did enjoy today's video, please make sure to go down there and drop a like on it. That's the best way to show your support. And as always, if you guys are new to the channel and you want to see more NHL content like this, then be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. and I will see you guys all in the next one.